Ethan Cole was no ordinary man. At just 42 years old, he was the CEO of one of the world's most powerful tech empires, a global company that powered everything from smartphones to satellites. He'd built it from scratch in his early 20s, coding in a tiny apartment, working 20-hour days, sleeping under his desk. Now, 2 decades later, his name was etched in the halls of Silicon Valley legend. Worth over $12 billion, Ethan lived in a world few could even imagine. Private jets, waterfront mansions, luxury cars, first-name invites to global summits, and private meetings with world leaders. That was his normal. His schedule was booked months in advance, and his time was more valuable than gold. But despite all the success, Ethan was known for something else. He was cold, calculated, always working. He didn't waste time on small talk. He didn't take vacations. He rarely smiled, and even more rarely let anyone truly get close to him. People respected him, even feared him, but no one could say they knew him. To the public, he was a symbol of ambition and achievement. To those who worked under him, he was a relentless perfectionist, a man who demanded excellence, tolerated no excuses, and viewed emotion as a distraction. But beneath that polished surface, no one really knew what Ethan Cole felt, or if he even felt anything at all. One evening, while in town for a high-profile business conference in Atlanta, Ethan found himself with a rare moment of quiet. No meetings, no media, just a 2-hour gap in his schedule. He didn't want anything flashy or crowded. He asked his driver to find a place low-key but high quality. That's how he ended up at Reynolds Grill, a small, classy steakhouse tucked away between tall glass buildings downtown. It wasn't the kind of place with paparazzi or VIP booths. It was known for its perfectly grilled Wagyu steaks, vintage jazz playlist, and old-school Southern charm. Ethan walked in just after 7:30 p.m., wearing a sleek, dark custom-tailored suit, shoes that cost more than most people's rent, and a watch worth more than the car parked outside. Heads turned, but just for a second. The regulars that were used to upscale guests. Still, you could feel the shift in the room when he entered. That quiet authority, that air of money. He sat in a corner booth by the window, alone, and picked up the menu, though he already knew what he wanted. A waitress approached. He glanced at her briefly, gave a polite nod, and ordered without hesitation. Filet mignon, medium rare. No salsa. Sparkling water with lemon. That'll be all, thank you. To most of the staff, it was just another rich guy eating solo. But to one waitress, this was not just another customer. She stared for a moment longer. Something clicked. His face, the name she overheard the host mention. Suddenly, the memory rushed back, and her heart sank. For Janelle Thompson, this moment was personal, because this man, Ethan Cole, had unknowingly played a role in one of the darkest chapters of her life. But she didn't show it. She smiled, nodded, and walked calmly toward the kitchen, with something heavy growing in her chest. Janelle Thompson was 28 years old, a single mother to a 6-year-old boy, and had been working at Reynolds Grill for nearly 6 years. She wasn't the loudest on the team or the one customers always remembered, but among the staff, she was respected. Always on time, always polite. The kind of person who remembered who liked extra ice in their drinks or preferred their steak with no salt. She didn't complain, didn't gossip, and never missed a single detail. That night, Janelle was just doing her usual shift, table to table, plate to plate. She was tired, as always. Life hadn't exactly been easy. Balancing rent, childcare, and long shifts wasn't glamorous, but she carried herself with quiet strength. She had no time to dream, just survive. When Ethan Cole walked in, she didn't recognize him at first. To her, he looked like any other well-dressed man with money. Expensive suit, polished shoes, serious face. But when one of the newer waiters leaned over and whispered, "Hey, that's Ethan Cole, the billionaire tech guy, the one on Forbes," something in Janelle's chest tightened. She looked over again. The name, the face, the aura, it all started to click. Her eyes didn't widen. Her hands didn't shake. But something deep in her memory stirred. Not out of hatred, but out of pain. Because years ago, someone in her life had desperately wanted to work for that man. Her older brother, Marcus Thompson, a brilliant young coder, a true genius with computers, and the closest person Janelle ever had to a best friend. Marcus had spent weeks preparing for a job interview with Ethan's company, late nights studying, building demo projects, even practicing how to speak in meetings. He was so excited when he made it to the final interview. He said, "If I get this job, we'll be okay. I can help you. I can finally take care of you and your son." But then silence. One cold rejection email. No feedback. No second chance. Just a simple, robotic message. "We regret to inform you." Marcus fell into a dark place after that. He'd already been quietly battling depression, something Janelle didn't fully understand back then. But that rejection felt like the last door closing. 3 months later, Marcus was gone. Janelle never forgot the name at the bottom of that letter. Ethan Cole, CEO. It haunted her, not because she believed Ethan had done it on purpose, but because in that moment, Marcus didn't feel like a human being to them, just another number tossed aside. And now, here he was, that same CEO, that same signature, sitting at her table in a cozy steakhouse, completely unaware of the storm behind her eyes. She didn't show it. She smiled just like she always did, calm and professional. Filet mignon, medium rare. No sauce. Sparkling water. That'll be all. She nodded and walked away, heart racing. In the back room, while waiting for the kitchen to finish his order, Janelle did something she'd never done before. She grabbed a piece of notepad paper, sat down in the corner, and started writing. Not out of anger, not out of blame, but out of truth. Because some things needed to be said. Janelle wasn't trying to cause a scene. She wasn't looking for revenge, pity, or attention. In fact, she knew Ethan Cole probably wouldn't even remember the name Marcus Thompson. To him, it had likely been just another applicant, another resume in a stack of hundreds. But to Janelle, it was everything. As she stood in the back hallway of the restaurant, next to the server station, her hands rested lightly on the counter. Her heart was beating faster than usual, but not from fear. From something heavier, a mix of pain, courage, and a quiet sense of responsibility. She looked at the little notepad they used for table orders. Small sheets, nothing fancy. She tore one off and sat down in the corner, away from the other waitstaff. Her pen hovered over the page for a moment. This wasn't about blame. She didn't hate Ethan Cole, but she couldn't let this moment pass. Not without telling him something she knew he probably never got to hear. With slow, careful handwriting, she began. "Mr. Cole, years ago, my brother Marcus applied for a position at your company. He was passionate, talented, and hopeful." She paused after that line. Marcus had spent so many nights preparing for that job, learning the software, updating his portfolio, dreaming out loud about moving her and her son into a better apartment. But after being rejected, he lost his way, and eventually his life. That sentence alone made her eyes sting, but she kept writing. "I'm not blaming you. I know you didn't know him. But sometimes, the decisions you make at the top, they ripple further than you realize." There was the heart of it. Ethan didn't know Marcus. He didn't see the struggle behind the resume. But the decisions he made, the ones that seemed small or routine to him, they had consequences. Real ones. Human ones. Janelle's hand shook slightly as she finished the note. "Please, never forget the human side of your power." She signed it softly. Janelle T. She read it over once, twice. It wasn't angry. It wasn't dramatic. Just honest. A message from one soul to another. She folded the paper neatly, tucked it into her apron, and took a deep breath. Her body moved on autopilot as she picked up Ethan's plate from the kitchen window, steak grilled to perfection, sparkling water beside it. As she approached his table, he was scrolling through his phone, face expressionless. Just another busy night in the world of a billionaire. She set the plate down gently, positioning the folded note so it peeked out slightly from under the plate, just enough to be seen. "Enjoy your meal, sir," she said with a calm smile. Then she turned and walked away, back into the kitchen, heart pounding louder now. Not from fear of what would happen next, but from the weight of what she'd just shared. For the first time in years, she felt like her brother's voice had finally been heard. Ethan finished his steak in silence. He didn't look rushed, didn't take calls, didn't scroll through emails like he usually did during solo dinners. Something about the quiet atmosphere in Reynolds' Grill, the soft clinking of glasses, the low jazz music playing in the background, allowed him a rare moment of stillness. As he moved his plate slightly to grab his napkin, he noticed something. A folded slip of paper, just barely sticking out from under the edge of the porcelain. He picked it up with curiosity, unfolded it slowly, and began to read. Once, then again. The room didn't change, but something inside him did. His hands trembled slightly as his eyes scanned the words a third time. Mr. Cole, years ago, my brother Marcus applied for a position at your company. That name, Marcus. It hit him like a punch to the chest. He remembered the applicant. Not his face, but the resume, the scores, the decision. Ethan had always prided himself on being ruthlessly efficient when it came to hiring. He filtered out thousands of applicants using brutal benchmarks, even once rejecting 40% of a batch based on a single aptitude test. Marcus, it seemed, had been one of them. He'd never thought twice about it. But this note, this simple, quiet note, shattered his usual way of thinking. He suddenly realized the people he rejected weren't just data points. They were real, with lives, struggles, families, dreams. Ethan quietly asked the manager to call the waitress who had served him. Janelle walked over, nervous. She expected arrogance, a cold stare, maybe even trouble. Instead, Ethan stood. His voice was softer than anyone had likely ever heard it. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know. I should have thought more about the lives behind the numbers. Thank you for reminding me." He placed $50,000 in cash on the table, paid the bill without a word, and walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind more than just money. He left behind the first crack in the armor he'd worn for years. But this was only the beginning. 2 months later, without media attention, flashy headlines, or a single press release, something extraordinary happened. A quiet announcement appeared on the official website of the Cole Foundation, the philanthropic arm of Ethan Cole's empire. No viral video, no cameras, just a simple, bold headline. The Marcus Thompson Fellowship, Empowering the Future of Tech. It was a brand new initiative, fully funded by Ethan himself, created in honor of a name most of the world had never heard, but one that now meant everything to him. The goal of the fellowship was simple but powerful: to give underprivileged youth, especially those from overlooked communities, a real shot at entering the tech world. The program provided full scholarships for coding boot camps and university tech programs, one-on-one mentorship, mental health counseling, and most incredibly, a guaranteed job opportunity at one of Ethan's companies after successful completion. And resumes thrown into a black hole. No fáciles rejections, no forgotten names. Instead, a direct pathway, built with care, empathy, and intent. In the first year alone, hundreds applied. Dozens were accepted. Young minds who might have been ignored or dismissed now had hope, structure, and opportunity. Ethan made sure of it. He reviewed the initial group personally, something he hadn't done in years. And Janelle? She received a handwritten letter, delivered to the restaurant where she still worked. Though now, she carried herself with a new kind of quiet pride. Inside the envelope was a message that brought her to tears. "Janelle, thank you for your honesty, your grace, and your courage. I can never undo what happened to Marcus, but I promise to honor his name by making sure others like him get the chance he didn't. When your son turns 18, his education, wherever he chooses to go, will be fully covered by this foundation. You reminded me to be human again." Ethan Cole. There was no press about it. No articles. No interviews. Because this wasn't about image. It was about impact. One quiet night. One heartfelt note. And one billionaire, finally seeing the human being behind the data.